I can just hold it if you need to. That's fine. Okay. And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about the chapel renovations. First of all, why did they choose the certain renovations that they did for the chapel, and what are all of the renovations? Because I know that there's more than just the chairs.
Well, the project started because of the frequent complaints we get from people who have to sit in the old chairs. They're uncomfortable. They're about 4 inches lower than a normal chair. They've got 40 years of age on them, and so we had a gentleman who comes to the symphony, and his wife had left some money for fine arts, and so we were able to convince him that we could use it for that if he would donate it. So he gave us the $500,000. And of course, once you start the project, we had to redo the floors. We had to put electricity underneath the floors so that the lights at the end of some of the pews, that's a regulation requirement now, could have the necessary electricity. We put a hearing loop in there so that hearing impaired people can get headphones, earphones, and hear better, whether it's symphony or chapel or whatever. Then we had to do some painting. We had to, because of code requirements, we had to take the metal rail down on the balcony. It was not standard height, or at least what the regulatory agencies, the safety people, require at this time. We had to do some other things. Once we picked the red seat covers, we changed the carpet on the spiral steps to red, and then it became obvious that the curtain was a different color of red, and also it's begun to deteriorate. If you look at it on the back side, you'll see where it's been torn and didn't always close correctly. So that's on order. That will come. Had to redo those sound panels in the back because they had carpet that had stains on it, and so one thing led to the other. So it became more of a project. The lights underneath the balcony weren't up to code. Again, 40 years, so we had to replace those and the exit signs, and so it's just an ongoing project. That often happens when you renovate.
Looks very nice in there.
So it was donor driven. He wanted to do it. We asked him for the money. He wanted to do it. We're of course naming we always called it Upper Seeger. It's now the Mary B. Martin Auditorium.
Oh.
Though we don't frequently use it, and we should. The Lower Seeger is the George Walker Auditorium, and I have to work on myself to remember that and to use that rather than Lower Seeger and Upper Seeger. We'll be doing some other things. We've got to do some mortar work, grout work around the steps in the front. If you look at those, the grouting has come out. So there's some ongoing projects we'll do if there's money left. We are going to give people an opportunity to name a seat if they want to do it in their own name or in honor or memory of someone, and we'll continue to do some upgrades. Of course, prior to this, we'd already spent about $100,000 repairing the organ. It had to have work done again, 40 years of service, and the leather bellows, I guess that's what it is. They were not retaining the air on that. So just some ongoing upgrades that we'll continue to do, depending on what kind of resources we get through the seed naming opportunity.
And Dean Matson had mentioned something about how now that you've updated the sound system, there's going to have to be, I believe he said, sanding on the walls, or some sanding to the building.
I don't know what he's talking about.
He told me to ask you that question specifically. I don't something about the sound. I might have to go ask him what he meant by that.
I have no idea.
Okay.
We're putting a true ground in there. Now, someone came along with a rather exorbitant proposal for sound and lighting, but we're not going to do that.
You're not going to do it.
It was going to cost more than the seats.
Okay. Maybe he meant to ask.
So I don't know what he has in mind.
Okay.
We're doing some things like a true electrical ground for the whole building, and
Maybe he said grounding, and I took it as
the grounding we're doing.
Okay.
They were supposed to work on that this week. That'll be external. It won't affect the
internal.
auditorium itself.
Okay.
On that, so that may be what he's having reference to.
Yeah, he gave me a very fast list of things. So
Yeah, we've got some issues with the sound, but unfortunately, we've had 2 or 3 different people to give us their opinion, experts, and they don't agree.
mm-hmm.
And some of them are pretty costly. The
Right.
grounding
Sure.
was only a few $1,000s, so we're going to start with that and see if that helps it. Back in the first semester, there was a lot of buzzing of the PA system when you got the volume very loud, and some say it's the dimmers for the lights, some say it's the grounding, the lack of grounding, some say it's the equipment. With equipment, we replaced pretty much all the boards and everything 4 or 5 years ago, so
Okay.
shouldn't be that.
Okay. And how do you think, I mean, the renovations of the chapel, I'm sure they make the quality of the campus go up in general, but was that project the most important at the time? Or?
Not necessarily the most important, but one thing you have to understand is when you're asking people to pay for something, it's got to be a project that they want to do.
Right.
And we've been trying to raise money to renovate the library, but nobody has stepped forward to, excuse me, fund that. And of course, to renovate the whole thing is about a $4 million price tag, so it's a little bigger price tag. Mr. Martin was willing to do this because his wife liked the arts. He came to the symphony. He thought the chairs were uncomfortable, and I agreed with him. A lot of other people do. So he was willing to part with her money to do that. Would he have given it for improvement to an athletic field? No.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have given it to go in a dormitory. So a lot of things we do may not be our highest priority, but when you are asking someone to pay for it, you got to convince them that it's their highest priority, or you go with what they want to do, as long as it's something that needs to be done. And we wouldn't go do something that was wasted or useless just because they wanted it done. A few years ago, Donner wanted to do the sign down at the entrance. Thought it was a good idea. That's what the man and his wife wanted to do. They were willing to pay for it, so it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yes.
So,
what happened to the old chairs that were in the?
I don't know. The company that installed the new ones, they were in charge of taking them out. I know they were recycling some of the stuff, so I'm not sure. I saw them when they started taking them out, and I don't know what they did with them. We tried giving them to several places for reuse. One group of people came, and when they sat on them, they said, "No, thank you." We tried to give it to a guy that does woodworking, but most of the wood, except for the end panels, most of the wood on there was laminate, like plywood with a veneer on it, so there really wasn't a whole lot they could do with it. So I'm not sure what they did with it.
Yeah, those chairs are not very tall people for
No, the story is that when Dr. Dean Walker and his wife were here and they decided to build a chapel, he was short and she was short, so they made the seats short. The rest of some of this may be urban lore. The rest of the story is that when Dr. Leggett came, he was short and Mrs. Leggett was short, and so it wasn't a real issue with him. And then I came and I was tall, but I think I could probably take a survey, and about 90% of the people say that they're uncomfortable if you sit in them for more than about 45 minutes.
Yes. Well, I won't keep you any
Okay.
longer. I'll let you get
Okay.
home, so
All right.
you don't have to spend the night.
Is that
Sorry.
right?